What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. Today I want to take a look at the final day of minicamp and talk about the New York Jets signing 2 depth pieces. So no second video recapping minicamp yesterday. I went to the Met game yesterday. Look who I ran into. You know that face. I was hanging with Jake Asman beforehand at the ESPN radio booth. It was a lot of fun. It took me forever to get home. So by the time I got home and after baking in the sun all day, I did not want to do anything. I just wanted to take a shower and lay down on the couch and watch a great Stanley Cup hockey game. So that's what I did. But moral of the story, let's recap yesterday. Later on today, I'm going to have a second video come out and talk about the biggest winners and losers from OTAs and minicamp. We're combining those two off-season activities, and then we'll get going into the weekend. But let's get started with this one today. We'll start with the 2 signings. The Jets have signed 2 depth pieces, guard Marquise Hayes and defensive end Jonathan Kingsley, to the active rosters to make room for those guys. They waived Zach Bailey and defensive back Trey Swilling. So what do you need to know about these guys? You don't really have a ton of playing time for either of them. Marquise Hayes was originally a 7th round draft pick by the Arizona Cardinals in 2022. And he was essentially immediately a practice squad player for them. He was bounced around a little bit. So practice squad guy for the Cardinals, Commanders, and Packers. I'd imagine just, a depth piece on the offensive line. I think unlikely to make the roster or uphill battle to make the roster. I'm sure he'll compete for the job, right? And has every right to, and we're going to be excited to watch and see who's, sticking around as the backups for both the tackle spots and the interior of the offensive line. But if I had to guess, most likely outcome is he also joins the Jets practice squad at some point. Then you have Jonathan Kingsley from Nigeria. He made his way over to America to play in the USA. He's a defensive end and has spent time with Buffalo and Denver. He started in Denver, then went to Buffalo pretty quickly. He didn't last very long in Denver. Really, the last 2 years, his calling card has been on special teams. He's played a decent amount of special team snaps, very low % of snaps as a defensive player. So don't really expect him to be out there, in the Jets base defense, rotating in at defensive end. No, if he makes this team, it would be for a special teams role. The Jets are having a lot of turnover on special teams, right? Like their kicker from last year, Greg Zuerlein, is gone. Thomas Morstead is gone. The likelihood of Xavier Gipson being their, punt returner this year is pretty slim. They're going to have a lot of change on that unit. Much needed change, and we'll see if Kingsley's sticking around for someone who can give you something on specials. Again, this is just something to watch in training camp when we get info on who's out there on the special teams units. So for actual practice itself on day 3, incredibly light. We saw in the past Robert Saleh cancel day 3 of minicamp. Teams like this is not unusual. Teams usually have a very light day. The last 2 days were pretty intense, the first couple of days of training camp, and the Jets, I thought all their OTA practices for the most part were with authority, a little intensity, which is good. The team needs it, but a little bit of a light day to kind of personify how it was a light day. At the end, they had an offensive lineman catching passes, which I don't know. If you played football growing up, and not that I ever played at a high level, I wasn't a very good football player. I was a better baseball player, but kind of like that, the little fun thing you do at the end of practice to keep the morale high. Look, they're going into a break here. Have a little bit of fun on the last day. It was a light day, about 35 minutes, according to reports. And it ended with some offensive linemen catching passes, which some of them were actually pretty good, as you see here on screen. Others, not so much. Let's hear from Aaron Glenn on what he thought about the New York Jets, both OTAs and minicamp.
Overall, I thought this has been a really good camp for all of us, including the coaches. And we had our last basically team meeting this morning. And what I want to make sure I stress to the players are throughout this whole deal from phase 1 all the way into phase 3, they started creating some habits. And I want to say habits are good habits. And as you leave the building, man, I don't want those habits to go away. I want them to continue to think about those habits. And also through this whole deal, man, it has been about our process on how we want to operate as a team, from who we want to be, how we want to do it, and not really totally focused on how we win and the vision for winning, because I think there's a lot of time to be able to talk about that. So it was more or less about our process going into training camp, and then as we get that nailed down, now let's talk about how we're going to win and our vision for winning.
Definitely satisfied with the camp. He wants to see the good habits they were building carry over, and this is the tough part, right? Because you send these guys out, they kind of get one more break before ramping it up for football for 5 straight months. Can this carry over from the late May to early June OTAs and, the different phases you have there at minicamp? Can that translate to once you get to training camp in late July? You hope that it does. You're kind of building this now, especially for a first, it's a first time head coach, number one, but it's a completely new staff. So they have to install a lot of things. And I'm sure that's what they were doing during this time. And you're just hoping that it translates. But, everyone gets one last break. It's going to be the quietest time of the year for even like me personally, just covering this team. It's not going to be I'll still do my videos, but it's not going to be the daily content that we were used to during training camp and or just OTAs and minicamp and that stuff. So just hope that everyone carries it forward. Last thing, Sauce Gardner was asked about essentially why he didn't hold out for a new contract, and I really liked his answer. I wanted to show my coaches and teammates that I bought in. I feel like they, meaning Muji and Glenn, are doing a great job in changing the culture. I love it. Honestly, really mature of both Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson to show up and be there for the team. They are both trying to be leaders, which is great. They're still young. They're still on their rookie contracts, but they're entering year 4, and this is a time that they need to step up and be leaders. And I believe in both of those guys. I think, Garrett has shown it. Sauce Gardner has shown it. Both deserve contract extensions, and I'm really hoping that between now and training camp, this is the perfect time to get a contract extension done. If there is any big news for the New York Jets over this time, you hope it's a contract extension for those two guys. You don't want to hear that someone got in trouble or did something stupid and got themselves suspended for a part of the season or whatever during this break. I don't think that's what's going to happen. The Jets have a pretty good roster in terms of the quality of men that they have, which is great. And that's, step 1 of changing the culture. Step 2 is, winning football games, winning cures all. But for Sauce and Garrett, 2 young guys, but I think are showing a lot of character by handling their contract negotiations in the way that they are. So I think both deserve to get that contract extension in the next few weeks. Guys, that'll do it for me in this one. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you next time.